A young girl, Sara Laura Galán, sits alone with her headset on. She turns and sees other students interacting and smiles, until one of them, Maca, José Salas, mockingly blows her a kiss in the air, making her turn away. Maca then joins her friends to discuss their plans. She doesn't want to go to the festival, but her friends beg her to come. They suggest they can meet at her house and go together. After Maca agrees, one of her friends, José Pastor, suggests they go for a beer. But another friend, Pilar Castro, insists on going to the butcher shop instead. Maca complains it's expensive, but Claudia reassures them that her mother has already placed an order. Their other friend, Elizabeth Casanovas, decides to go with her.
Hombre, rubia, ya casi tengo lo tuyo.
When they enter the butcher shop, the butcher, Thomas, Julián Valcárcel, tells Claudia her order is ready and asks why she hasn't been around lately. Sara greets them as well. Thomas then asks about the festival and whether Sara is going, but she tells him she wants to study instead. Claudia pays for the order, while Rocio takes a picture and they leave. Back in the shop, Sara heads to the back and opens Instagram. She sees a picture of herself with her parents in the shop, accidentally likes it, and, furious, punches a hanging slab of meat, because nothing says frustration like attacking an innocent cut of beef. Just then, she notices her brother lying on the ground and rushes to wake him up. Later that night, as the family eats dinner, Sara's mother, Carmen Machi, asks why she is so quiet. Sara stays silent, so asks if she'd like to go hunting. When Sara doesn't respond, tells Thomas to take her hunting tomorrow.
Papa,
Hey!
mañana con la niña a cazar.
In her room, Sara scrolls through Maca's Instagram and sees her posts having fun with her friends. The next morning, Sara goes to the pool. Just as she's about to get into the water, a man suddenly emerges, startling her. As she stands by the pool, Maca, Rocio, and Claudia arrive. Maca starts bullying her, calling her Piggy. Rocio joins in, pointing to the man and teasing that he's Sara's boyfriend.
¿Y cómo habláis? Oink, oink, oink.
Claudia, however, stands behind them, clearly unsettled. Unable to bear it any longer, Sara jumps into the water. When she emerges, the man is leaving. Maca continues tormenting her, laughing that her boyfriend is abandoning her. Sara tries to ignore her, but Maca follows, placing a net over her head and snapping pictures. When Sara finally pushes it off and returns to the water, Maca and Rocio grab her bag and clothes before running off. With no other choice, Sara walks home in just her swimsuit. As she walks, a group of men in a car drives up behind her, calling her Piggy. They get out, mock her further, then drive away. Traumatized, Sara cries and keeps running. She then stumbles upon a white van with the engine running but walks past it. Behind her, Maca crawls on the ground, covered in blood. The man from the pool picks her up, throws her into the van, and drives off, passing right by Sara. Through the back window, Claudia sees Sara and starts begging for help, but Sara freezes. The driver, Desconocido, Richard Holmes, struggles to restart the van. Seeing Sara standing there, he casually tosses her towel back, and, to her shock, Sara waves him goodbye, choosing not to help Claudia or anyone in the car. Sara then rushes home and locks herself in the bathroom. She steps into the shower, but Claudia's desperate cries for help echo in her head. As she tries to wash away the guilt, suddenly opens the shower curtain. Seeing the sunburn on Sara's skin, she scolds her for not being careful. At this point, Sara is just fed up with everyone in her life because dealing with her mother after spending that kind of day is really hard. She then orders her to go to the shop. After this, Sara took a cake out of a box and ate it, trying to calm herself down. She then opened her computer and scrolled through Claudia's Instagram, crying. Later, she went to the shop. While reading, she saw Pedro through the window. He was trying to call his friends, but no one was answering. Thomas then gave Sara some money, telling her to buy something for herself and handing her a list of things to get for him. As she shopped, Sara started feeling paranoid. She suddenly cut off her beaded bracelet from her wrist and went to pay. The cashier, noticing her choices, asked if she was sure she wanted to buy that, pointing at the snacks. Feeling embarrassed, Sara left them on the counter and only paid for the rest. After she left, a man came and took the snacks she had abandoned. When When Sara returned, she saw a crowd of people gathered, talking. Asen approached and asked her if she knew what had happened. Sara looked confused, so Asen took her to the car, saying they needed to go to the pool. During the drive, Asen asked Sara questions, but she only gave short answers. When they arrived at the pool, police officers were already there. Asen asked one of the officers what was going on, but he refused to disclose anything. A woman in the crowd then blurted out that they had found a person named Robber in the water, and that Rosa, the waitress, was also missing. Hearing this, Sara immediately vomited. Asen, completely missing the bigger picture, started worrying about how long the corpse had been in the water, because Sara had been swimming there and might have caught something. Priorities, Asun. Priorities. The police, noticing Sara's reaction, started asking if she had seen anything. Sara quickly told them she hadn't been at the pool but rather by the river. Her mother, however, insisted that Sara always went to the pool. This pushed Sara over the edge. She screamed that everyone calls her Piggy and that she avoids the pool because of that.
Me llaman cerda. Por eso no bajo y tú no haces nada.
After this, they got back into the car and left. Sara was still shaken by everything. Later that night, as they ate dinner, Asen served Sara a plate of vegetables and told her she needed to lose weight, because obviously that's the most pressing issue right now.
La maca, la clau.
Te calla.
Somewhere else, a woman is tied and gagged. Desconocido approaches her with a knife and slashes her throat. Back at Sara's house, Claudia's mother arrives, desperate, asking if Sara knows where Claudia is. But Asen, visibly angry, snaps at her, reminding her that Claudia and her friends bullied Sara and that they were never friends. She then kicks her out, because sympathy is not in Asun's vocabulary.
Que salga ya de mi casa, fuera de aquí, hombre. Fuera ya, coño.
Sara, not feeling well, starts hiccuping and goes to her room. There, she spots the same snacks she didn't buy earlier, sitting by her window. She looks outside, but no one is there. Nervously, she starts eating. She then goes to her brother's room and asks if she can use the Find My Phone app to locate her phone. Instead of helping, he just jokes about her losing it. Determined, Sara sneaks into the living room to steal her father's phone. As she crawls on the floor, Asen suddenly appears behind her. Thomas turns and sees Sara, who quickly makes up an excuse, saying she was just trying to scare her dad. Thomas, unfazed, simply asks her to get him a beer. Seizing the opportunity, Sara hands him a cold beer and took his phone. She then heads to the place where she last saw the van and starts calling her phone. As she searches, she finds a pendant on the ground. Just as she examines it, she hears a noise behind her, but it's only a bull. She keeps calling her phone, wandering deeper into the forest. As she walks, she stumbles upon a piece of cloth. Then, she hears her phone ringing and follows the sound. There are traces of blood on the rocks and trees. Soon, she sees a house in the distance, with fireworks lighting up the sky. On the ground, she spots her bag and moves to pick it up, but suddenly, Desconocido appears behind her, lighting a torch. They stare at each other for a tense moment, but before anything happens, they hear the sound of approaching cars. He quickly grabs her, and they move inside the house. The parents of the missing kids are the ones approaching, tracking their children's phone locations. Claudia's mother is frantic, but the others seem far less concerned. They're ready to give up and head back, but she insists they keep searching.
Es que ese aparato dice que mi hija está en medio de este bosque.
Inside, Desconocido hides with Sara as they hear the parents calling out for their children. He tries to calm her down before leaving. Sara, also trying to stay unnoticed, starts moving carefully. Suddenly, chaos erupts. The search party stumbles upon a dead body. Claudia's mother, horrified, starts running frantically, calling for her daughter.
Claudia! Claudia!
Sara takes the opportunity to escape, sprinting through the confusion. At the same time, the police arrive with dogs, escalating the situation into total chaos.
Claudia! Claudia!
But somehow, Sara manages to slip away and make it back home. Her father's phone started ringing, so Sara quickly slid to the floor, making it look like her mother had dropped it. As Asen headed back upstairs, she suddenly stopped, hearing the laundry machine running. Suspicious, she returned to the kitchen, only to find Sara standing there, half naked. Furious, Asen immediately assumed Sara had been sneaking food. She demanded to know what she ate. Sara, exhausted, simply admitted she was stealing food. Asen coldly ordered her to go to her room, declaring that her diet would start tomorrow. Back in her room, Sara heard a noise outside. Instead of panicking, she calmly told the person out there that she was coming, then headed downstairs. It was Pedro. He immediately questioned her about lying. He knew she had been at the pool. Claudia had sent the video to their group chat. Sara, frustrated, told him the truth. She had lied because they were bullying her.
Estaba Juan Carlitos, estaba mi madre. ¿Qué les digo?
Pedro, sympathetic, offered her a smoke. He then admitted that he had deleted the video because he felt bad for her. Sara, now high, started laughing, and Pedro helped her back home. Standing outside her house, Pedro grew serious and asked her to be honest with him. He was afraid if people started pointing fingers, he might get accused of the other's disappearance. Sara, still emotional, promised that if that ever happened, she would tell the truth.
Si se enteran de lo que he hecho.
Pedro suggested that everything was probably fine, that Maca and the others were just out partying somewhere. But at that moment, Sara broke down, crying uncontrollably, because just partying doesn't quite explain the blood and missing people. Before Pedro could react, Claudia's mother appeared, confronting them both about her missing daughter. Things escalated quickly. Asen and other neighbors showed up, drawn by the commotion. Tension thickened as Pedro revealed that Sara was at the pool, and worse, that Maca had filmed herself trying to drown her. Horrified, Claudia's mother lunged at Sara. Asen, not one to back down, jumped in, and soon the two women were locked in a full-blown fight. Sara was taken to the police station and got into an interrogation room. The police asked why she lied and what happened at the pool. Sara finally admitted she was at the pool. She then started telling them what happened. They were bullying her and took all her clothes and towel, so she had to go back home in her swimsuit. But there was nothing more. The officer kept pressuring her, but Asen interrupted and took her out.
Basta. Nos vamos.
Asun.
As she was walking out, the officer pointed out that Sara had blood on her pants, so she had to go and wash it before they left the station. Back at the house, Desconocido was going through Sara's things when Thomas showed up. He attacked him, and Thomas fell unconscious. Downstairs, Asen and Sara came back. Asen started asking her about the towel she brought and questioned why there was blood and why Claudia's towel was there. As they argued, Asen raised her hand to hit her, but Desconocido came and hit Asen instead. He then pulled Sara out of the house and took her to his car. Other kids saw them and started making fun of Sara, calling her Piggy again. Desconocido drove right at them, missing them as they jumped over a fence. Well, that's one way to shut them up. In the car, Desconocido offered Sara a biscuit to calm her down. As they drove, Desconocido hit a bull. Trying to regain control, he crashed the car. Sara got knocked unconscious, hitting the windshield. Desconocido carried her to his house and tried to clean her wound. When Sara regained consciousness, she was in an unfamiliar place. She got up and started looking around. She then stumbled upon Claudia and Rocio tied and gagged. She tried to untie them but struggled. Before she could do anything else, Desconocido came back, and she had to hide. Desconocido started looking for Sara as the two girls screamed. Sara tried to sneak away unnoticed, but as she hid, she saw Maca's dead body. She started screaming. Desconocido heard her and found her. He pulled her into his arms to calm her down. She didn't want to die. Desconocido reassured her she wouldn't. He hugged her and told her they had to leave. Yeah, being comforted by a serial killer always makes things better. He then took her to the girls, handed her a knife, and told her they would do it together. He encouraged her to kill them, but Sara turned the knife to him instead. This made Desconocido angry, and he hit Sara. As he went to pick up his rifle, Claudia kicked him, distracting him for a moment. Sara used the opportunity to stab him twice. The rifle went off, and Claudia's hand was blown away. Sara and Desconocido got into a physical fight. She bit him on the neck, drawing blood. She kept attacking him as he struggled until he finally died. Sara, now terrified, started crying. Then she got up and picked up the rifle. Rocio called her Piggy from behind. Sara turned back and shot her direction. Rocio kind of pushed her luck at this point. Sara then turned to Claudia and aimed the rifle. Claudia begged her not to kill her, but Sara shot at her. Instead of hitting her, the bullet struck the rope she was hanging from. Without saying a word, Sara turned and walked out of the place. Rocio was also still alive because Sara had aimed for the rope and not her. The two girls struggled to untie their hands after Sara left. Sara walked through the streets, covered in blood. She stumbled upon Pedro. Without hesitation, she asked for help. Pedro, shocked but not asking any questions, told her to get on his bike. He started riding toward town, because at this point, what else can he even do? Sara rested her head on his back as they passed by the long fields to reach town.